If you're listening to this and Erik ten Hag is still in a job, the people at Man United have no idea what they're doing.
Two very, very brilliant, successful young men at the forefront of this thing we call blackness, forefront of the culture, forefront of hip-hop. It's really, really interesting. I like the poetry. I don't like the way it has turned for the darker right now.
For us, instantly, there was no other story. You know, this was the way to be able to reflect the pain, the anguish, the heartbreak, the shock, and the horror of what had happened.
Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Whisper It Loudly podcast. Myself, Hugh Wisencroft. You know me from a few places. Channel 4 News, Jordan Jarrett Bryan, Darren Lewis, assistant editor of the Mirror newspaper. Reunited. It's been a while since we've done this. It's my fault for oversleeping and being ill and them things there. But here we are.
Didn't want to say it.
Together once again. You can blame me if you missed me. I'm with you all the way. We're going to get straight into the football. A little bit later on, by the way, we're going to have a special guest with us, Nels Abbey, author of a new book, The Hip Hop NBA, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be a really interesting chat, but we're going to start football. We're not going to start with one of the perceived big teams in the country.
Why not?
Because I think Tottenham are more interesting.
Yeah, United are boring.
United lost 4-0 to Crystal Palace, and
So?
we're going to talk about Tottenham.
You
Yes,
lost
yes.
2 out of 3. It's a democracy.
United lost a football game.
Again.
So what?
If you're watching this,
That's not news anymore.
If you're watching this and you feel that the team that has spent over £1 billion since Sir Alex Ferguson retired and us are going backwards is not worth a conversation.
Well, hang on, we're doing it right.
We're going to talk about it. We're just not doing it first.
Okay, all right.
So Manchester United fans, hold tight. Tottenham fans, we're starting with you this week. Good news, your team's lost for the 4th game in a row, this time at Anfield, 4 down after an hour. Listen, I got to get on to Ange Postecoglu, really. I don't want to be harsh on him. I know people talk about this Plan B stuff and da-da-da-da. What I think's happening with Ange Postecoglu, in terms of the wider criticisms, albeit they're having a very bad patch, is we're finally seeing the slight, should an Australian be coaching in the Premier League? What do you know about football creeping in?
He's saying it's coming through now.
He's coming through now. He rocked up in it. He won 10 games in a row. People are like, can't say anything. Now he's having a rocky patch. Suddenly it's like, does this guy really know what he's doing? You know, he's been to Scotland, won many trophies. He was there in Japan, won many trophies, been in Australia, had a fantastic career so far, always been a good coach everywhere he's been. Now, he's rocked up at Tottenham. He's got them during pre-season into a pretty good shape. People are talking Champions League minimum. Now they're going to probably miss out on the Champions League. But when he talks about players not believing in the style, I think he's right. And this is what I mean. This is why I think it's creeping in. Because when it was working, everyone was like, what a manager, just needs better players. Now he's had a few injuries. We know he hasn't got, in my opinion, a top elite squad. But suddenly his reputation is not there to keep that belief.
Are you saying you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with it. This is what I'm saying. I'm not saying if it was specifically Pep Guardiola, because I think that's different because of everything he's won. But we can say Unai Emery and Aston Villa, for example. They've had rocky patches. But because he's won a few Europa Leagues, perceived to be a top coach, even though he hasn't won Champions League, he hasn't won league titles, but he's still got that level of respect in Europe. So let's use Unai Emery as someone who's got a few trophies. Ange does too, by the way. And he has that reputation where if Villa have a bad patch, no one says the manager needs to change his style, needs to change his philosophy, needs to move to his plan B. We know how Emery's teams play. He's done it for years. He's had success. He's not going to change. But suddenly, Ange Postecoglu should change. He's saying some of the players are losing belief. And I think it's not just in the minds of the public and the media, it's also in the minds of the players. They, I think, are losing faith in his plan because he's Ange Postecoglu from Australia. I think if it was a manager with, say, Emery's reputation in Europe, that wouldn't be part of the conversation in the same way that it is with Postecoglu.
Can I go first? I agree and disagree. So I hear your point that there's a level of
xenophobia, I guess, to people that aren't from Europe. Managers that come from certain other parts of the world. As you say, what do you know about football? That definitely does exist. But I also feel like, I remember Mikel Arteta, just take my club as an example, his start at Arsenal wasn't great, right? And there were some rocky periods in his early managerial reign at the club. And people were saying the same about him. The response was, you know, it's his first job, it's his first, you know, is he the right guy? Does he know what he's doing? So I'm not sure it's entirely about the fact that Postecoglu is Australian and there's a snobbery.
I know, but I see what you do. I see what you mean. But what I'd say is they've gone for the most obvious thing. So with Arteta, he's a novice. That's why.
There's something
with
there to
Ange,
hang on to.
You can't throw that at him. You can't say he's never won anything. So what do you throw at him?
He's Australian. Sure. Fair point.
So they're just going to the nearest thing that they can grab to say, there you go, this is why.
I think the narrative around Ange Postecoglu's management at Spurs this year is a little bit harsh. Yes, I understand the whole, he's got a way of playing. He's told the world, I'm not going to change. I don't think he will change. I don't think he should change. I think he just needs better players. And I get as Spurs fans, they're looking at this week in, week out and saying, you're making the same error every week. We've been smoked by Chelsea. We've been beaten by Arsenal. We got smashed by Newcastle. I get it. But for me, I like a manager that has his way of playing football, what he wants to implement, and sticking by it. I reckon if you put 3 or 4 better players in that Tottenham 11, they are on smoke next season. The keeper, Vicario, I went really big on first half of the season, really rating him. And people are laughing at him now. He's having a confidence crisis, right? He's a good keeper, in my opinion. He's having a really poor run. Van der Ven had a really rough month. Van der Ven will be one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League in the next 2 seasons. Maddison, I like Maddison. I'm not sure if he's the guy, but Maddison is clearly a good player. And then you've got players like Benton Kerr. It's been a bit weird. Yeah. There's good players in that Spurs team. Put 2 or 3 more in that 11, they are competing for a top 4 spot minimum next season.
Well, they've competed for a top 4 spot.
Well, that's the thing. They're 5th. People are talking about Spurs like they're 8th or 9th. They're still 5th in his debut season. So yes, the lows have been really low at Spurs this year, granted. But I genuinely believe, and this is the bigger issue, if Daniel Levy is prepared to spend properly this summer, that Spurs side can compete for being in the top 4 next season, in my opinion. So yes, I get why Spurs are frustrated, but I'm not buying into this. He's got to rip up his tactics, change his plan, and do something different. No.
Hold on. You realise Ange said he's not here for competing for the top 4. You know, he's here to win things. He's a manager that wins things.
Okay, well, I'll change it to even win things. Put 2 or 3 better players in that 11, that team can compete for the FA Cup or the League Cup. I genuinely believe that. What? No?
Sorry.
I agree.
They can compete for the League Cup. You think that is you're just offering them a bright future?
Well, what it means is trophies.
A trophy, I mean.
No, but
it's a trophy.
We're talking.
And let's be honest,
the Premier League,
Spurs can't turn their nose up at a League Cup. Let's have it right.
No, but I'm not turning my nose up, but he's not talking about, you know, I don't want to say anyone can win a cup, but Tottenham, an average Tottenham team should be able to win a League Cup. I know they haven't, but they should be able to win a League Cup.
I don't know about
this
that.
season, they should have been good enough to win a League Cup.
The last few winners of the League Cup have been Liverpool and Manchester City.
I know, but look who has won it. Like, go 10, 20 years. Like, if you put together a good season in that tournament, you can win the League Cup.
But not in the modern era. In the modern era, it's the biggest teams are able to win League Cups with their B teams until they get to the final. Then they play their A team.
But a big team, B team, shouldn't be beating Tottenham's best team.
No. I'm not talking about Tottenham in particular, but I'm saying a lot of those big teams, they play the second string until you get to the quarters and the semis, and then they play the bigger players.
My point more broadly, though, is, you know, when he talks about putting together a team that can compete for the big trophies, he means consistently qualifying for the Champions League, competing for the Premier League title, competing in the Champions League to get to the latter stages.
Those
Why is it either or?
Those things are
it's not
doable.
either or,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, if you build a team that can compete for the Champions League, then you can definitely win an FA Cup or a League Cup.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
So you've got to look higher than...
If he gets if you get 2 or 3 better players in that Spurs 11, they can compete for the title potentially, simultaneously.
Thank you.
Pick
That's
up
what
a
the
League
Tottenham
Cup.
fans wanted to hear for the title. They want to compete for the title.
Yeah, but that takes time. Arsenal have been near perfect this season and are going to miss out on the title. So it's not as simple as just we want to win the title. Let's go for it. It's not. Am I being? Am I being?
It's a fair point.
Harsh?
I think as far as Postecoglu is concerned, at the start of the season when Harry Kane was sold, nobody had any expectation that they would be anywhere near the European places, let alone the top four. And yet, going into last weekend, so what's that, match day 36, they were sixth highest scorers in the Premier League. There were some stages of the campaign where they were the highest scorers in the Premier League. I look at the number of points he's racked up in his first season in English football. It's more than Klopp and Guardiola in their first season of English football. I look at the way that Spurs fans have taken to the identity that he's given the team, and I know for a fact from speaking to Spurs friends who I know personally, and Spurs fans that have got in touch after I've been on TV or radio, and they've said we are more satisfied with the way that Spurs play now than we ever were under Conte and Mourinho. And you know, guys, I rate Conte a lot.
I think that's a poor bar for Tottenham fans to set. I hear it a lot.
Why?
No, because I think it's we're talking about a feeling. Of course, it feels better to play attacking football and score goals and win more games, you know. But Conte got sacked. They were in the top four. They were miserable, but they were in the top four.
But that's my point. That is exactly my point, and that's their point. More to be more specific, they're saying we were on course to achieve our objectives, but the matchday experience that we pay for, that we have a financial and emotional investment in, it wasn't
I know that,
good enough.
But now they've got that. This is what I mean about the bar. It will now be, well, when are we going to win trophies?
No, it's not. No, it's not. Again, it's not.
Maybe that's my broader question.
Hugh, what Postecoglu
So you
has
think
been
just playing good football for years is going to be enough?
No, Postecoglu has been very clear in his press conferences. I know because I've been to them, and he said, "I am trying to build a squad to compete for the title." Is that doable? Liverpool came from 7th to compete for the title under Brendan Rodgers. 2 seasons ago, you were competing for a top 4 place. Last season, you were competing for the title. You weren't good enough at the time. This season, you're taking it to the wire. It is doable to come from behind. Liverpool were 25 points behind City one season, and then they basically came back and they reduced it to a point. It's doable that a team like Tottenham, as you say, if they invest, if they bring in the right players, and they've got the right head coach in charge who gives the players belief. And I accept the whole thing about they've lost belief, but I don't think it's necessarily because he's Australian. Yeah, that's kind of a new one on me. I think it's more because it's a new team and they are in uncharted territory as a new team.
I'm not saying it's because he's Australian. No, I'm not saying it's because he's Australian. What I'm saying is it's because of the perception around him. If he was from another, but no, not just because he is Australian. But you know what I'm saying? If it was an Emery, you'd be like, you'd have the faith almost. We'll stick to it. Postecoglu screaming at his players to just pass the ball forward against Chelsea, and he was like, "What are you doing?" It's almost like when the results went bad, and that's what I mean about losing belief and faith. As soon as the results went bad, I think the players have started to question: should we have our line here? And his point is, because they're asking that question in their mind, we are getting exposed more because they're hesitating. They're thinking, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? And that maybe comes from the fact that, if you're Guardiola, people are going to hang on his every word because he's been there, done it, perceived as one of the best managers in history. Even if they go through a bad patch, no one's going to be like, Gaffer, we shouldn't be playing like this. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do that. I don't think they would because it's Guardiola.
I think the interesting thing with Spurs players is that half of them won't be there by the time he's finished the rebuild.
Yeah.
There are a number of them that have come to the club that will be well versed. I totally agree. Van der Ven will be one of the best best defenders, central defenders in the Premier League within a couple of years. And I think as far as the team is concerned, the confidence is concerned, the leadership is concerned, that is only going to grow. I think they'll bring in more up front because I don't think Richarlison is the future of Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh, no,
I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's the...
6 months ago, he was your guy, wasn't he?
He was my guy, and you're right to call me out on that, but I just look at him now and I think he's a good... I think he might stay but I think that he might be on rotation. He might be among a number of strikers rather than, and I think, look, Spurs don't worry me. I look at Spurs where they are now for a first season in charge. I think Postecoglu's done a fantastic job, and I think a lot of the people that are questioning him, you used Arteta as an example at Arsenal. I would use Emery as an example. It always fascinated me that people would question a man who speaks 6 languages for the way he said good evening. And I think Arsenal...
Yeah, I hated that.
Threw him, exactly. It was one of the worst things I'd seen. And I think that he was thrown overboard too soon. He went away to Villarreal. He did great things there. He won the league with PSG. He's obviously won a number of Europa Leagues with Sevilla. And he comes back to an Aston Villa side that I would argue are not better as a squad than Spurs. And he has them in the Champions League. And he has them in the latter stages of the Europa Conference League.
I think Villa have got a better squad than Spurs.
No.
I think they do. I
don't
think they've
think
got a
they
better
do.
keeper than Spurs.
You think Villa have a better squad than Spurs?
I think they've got...
Stop.
Go on.
Would you rather have Ollie Watkins or Son Heung-min?
Well, Son's not a striker.
He can play up front and has done for a lot of
I'm not
this season.
comparing Watkins with Son. I'm comparing Watkins with Richarlison. Watkins with... Who else plays for the mid up front? I don't even know who the other strikers are. I don't see Son as...
John Duran.
Yeah.
John Duran plays for...
I'm not comparing...
I know what you mean.
I'm not comparing Watkins with
So you're
Son.
saying to me you think...
As a collective, if you give me Villa squad, Douglas Luiz, Leon Bailey.
No.
What?
I'm with you. I am with
Centre
you.
backs, Van der Ven.
Yeah, who else? Who else?
Romero.
What, he's that good?
No,
really? He's that good?
Would he get in Villa's team?
I think it's a discussion. I think it's a discussion.
He would.
I think it's a discussion.
Who would you have? Would you have Udogie at Spurs, or would you have Luca Digne?
Digne's not their first choice left back. He's not their first choice left back. He's not their first choice left back.
Who is?
Which of the fullbacks at Villa are better than Udogie?
Matty Cash on the other side.
I like Matty Cash.
No, would you have him or Udogie?
I think it's a debate. I don't think it's an obvious Spurs have got a better squad.
Say it with your chest.
I'm saying it with my chest. I'm taking Villa's squad.
Luca Dean, or what is it, Moreno, were the 2 left backs at Villa. So you take your pick, a doggy or them.
A doggy.
Okay, thanks. Into centre mid, Douglas Luiz will all have, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, McGinn.
Yes.
Or I was gonna say Madison, but I wouldn't call him the creative one. So or Bentancur.
I don't even rate McGinn like that, but Bentancur is too inconsistent for me. So over the course of a season, I'm taking McGinn.
Ramsey or Madison.
That's not a fair comparison either.
Why?
Ramsey's not in their first 11.
Of course he is.
No, he's not. He's actually not.
All right, Diaby or Madison.
Diaby.
Bailey or Kulusevski.
Kulusevski. It's close.
It's close.
It's close.
You were talking like it wasn't close. You were talking like it wasn't close. You were talking like it wasn't close.
I'm taking Villa squad overall. And just going back to Postecoglu, a question for you guys. Did he say that he's here to compete for the title, or did he say I'm here to win trophies?
No, he said he's here to compete for the title.
Okay,
I want to be competing for the title.
Okay.
Good season for Spurs if they miss out on the Champions League still.
I think they've still had a good season.
I think 5th is a good season. You said fantastic. I wouldn't say fantastic, but I think 5th for Spurs in his first year losing Kane. That's a good season, man. It's not ending very well, granted.
No, but you know what? It's not ending very well because all of these big defeats, these heavy defeats, are all coming at the same time.
Yeah.
If they'd been spread over the course of the season, we'd be like they're part of the highs and lows.
Not winning a London derby for the Spurs fans will be a
I'll call it
frustration
now.
as well.
Tottenham are getting something against Man City. That's their final home game.
They've done that in each of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. That's the final home game. Under lights, midweek, isn't it? Yeah, it's the final week of the season.
At the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as well.
This is that, and that's why final home game. Having maybe disappointed by not reaching the Champions League, wanting to leave your home fans on a high. They're at home at the weekend against Burnley, so they get to hit a little bit of a rhythm if they can get a good result going into that game.
Do you agree they'll get something at City?
I don't think they'll win, but I think they could get something. Yeah.
You were saying last week they know City on the way home in the dark from here.
But I don't think it's going to affect City's momentum. I just think that they'll.
But if they drop points and we beat United, which we'll get to in a second, then
I've got a feeling that United might turn up against Arsenal.
You think?
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Should we go to Manchester United?
Let's do it right now.
do it.
Was I wrong about Postecoglu though? In a word,
Well, I can't
the
quite work
perception.
out whether you
and
were
the
on his
perception.
side or not.
Yeah, it was a bit.
it's not about whether I'm on his side or not. I just think that certain people have, people were on his side heavily at the start
Do
of the
you
season.
think he's had a good?
And I
he's had a
think the
good first
honeymoon
season?
is now over. And I'm like, why is the honeymoon over?
Do you think he's had a good first season?
I think he has had a really good first season.
Okay.
Excellent first season.
Then I agree
But the
with
way
you.
that I hear people talking about him,
Don't worry about them.
I'm like,
I agree
I'm
with that.
searching for the reason why.
I agree with that.
And all I can see is,
I agree
I
with
get it, the results are bad. But would they be talking like this if the manager had a better CV? And I don't think they would. And I was just searching for a reason. Yeah. I love Postecoglu. I love Postecoglu. I think he's going to be a great manager for Tottenham. Moving on to someone who I know is not a great manager for Manchester United. That is Erik ten Hag.
Yikes.
If you're listening to this and Erik ten Hag is still in a job, the people at Man United have no idea what they're doing. None.
Do you know?
None.
I actually got a feeling. Do you want to read the paper while we're clear?
None.
Could be here for a while.
Humiliation for Ten Hag as Palace run riot.
Eric gets
Torn
a kick in.
to shreds. Car crash
Car crash.
on the back of the paper. This is unbelievable scenes. Manchester United getting torn to shreds in the paper, okay? The idea that this manager is still in a job. Listen to me.
They've got a fridge of Eric Cantona.
This is going to be this is going to be
taking the piss.
a retrospective, because by the time you're listening to this, Erik ten Hag is on a flight back to the Netherlands.
Oh,
I
man.
hope so, because
Wow.
by the way, big mitigating factor, big injuries at Manchester United.
No.
Hold on, because we're going to get to it. The big mitigating factor, probably Ten Hag will say himself, was the injuries and people playing out of position, this, that, and the other. In my opinion, the full responsibility goes on the football club, that even with injuries, the players that they have available are at this level. All due respect to Johnny Evans, I know Manchester United fans love him, I love him for what he does. He is who he is. He tries his best. He shouldn't be in a Manchester United shirt right now. Casemiro, and I've said it to you many times before, was not the player that Manchester United wanted, was not the age profile, was not the type of player they wanted, but he did have the CV that they wanted. Proven winner. They bought him at the wrong time of his career. For me, that signing wasn't going to work out, and we're seeing that. He's not a centre-back, but that's irrelevant. This league is too fast for him.
He's not centre mid at the moment.
Yeah, and we've got kids in there. Christian Eriksen and Mason Mount, 60 million. All of these decisions were made by the football club, and many of them were made by Erik ten Hag, and it falls squarely on them. So I think you could use it as a mitigating factor, but equally, the reason that these players are on the pitch is because Manchester United chose them. That's a fact, isn't it? Is it not? Is it not? Is it not? Is it not?
I'm just loving it.
Listen, anyway, credit to Crystal Palace. They beat Manchester United both home and away in the same Football League season for the first time in their history.
Oh, wow, I didn't know
13 losses in the Premier League this season is Manchester United's most in a campaign since 1990. 18 defeats in all competitions is their most since 1978.
What should they do, Hugh?
And they've conceded 81 goals
What
in all
should they
competitions
do?
this season.
What should they do?
Do you know what? And it will sound radical, but if the rules around profit and sustainability are what they are, Manchester United should just bite the bullet and spend 500 million on players and get a points deduction at the end of the next accounting period, which is in 3 years' time. And by then, they might have actually sold some players, made some money, sold some shirts, sold some tickets, got to the Champions League, and maybe those losses won't be as big. It's a total overhaul. Managerial position, pertinently, that should happen. For me, almost immediately. I don't see how he gives Man United a better chance of winning the FA Cup final and having a positive end to the season. He doesn't. There is a line, whatever that line is for Manchester United, whatever you would say the baseline is, they're well below it at this point in time.
Right, so you are Ineos, right, and you could wave a magic wand right now. You've got to make a decision. You've just had those heavy losses. You've just given us the numbers there.
Decision on which thing?
The whole thing. What do you do? Where do you go from here after that defeat? Lack of appetite, lack of goals.
But
lack of cohesion.
when you say where do you go from here, are we talking about in terms of our matches?
Like you just said.
Tuesday morning,
listen,
4-0 defeat.
Are we
what do you
talking
do?
about in terms of the football club as a whole, or just in terms of the footballing part of the club?
The footballing part.
The manager can go. For me, Steve McLaren can take over until the end of the season. Or I'll tell Michael Carrick to cancel his holiday and we'll give him 5 games in charge of Manchester United and he can go back to Middlesbrough and we'll pay them a fee for his services
Who would you get in long term?
for a month. Long term, everyone asks me this. There is no particular name, but I do have a particular profile for what Manchester United needs. A friend messaged me this morning saying Thomas Tuchel or Zinedine Zidane. And I was like, those two are kind of the worst type of managers that I would want to see go to Manchester United right now. That would be like giving Lewis Hamilton a larder and asking him to beat Max Verstappen in the next Formula One race. It's pointless. Doesn't matter what talent you put in the driving seat, he ain't got a car to do it. So at this point in time, Thomas Tuchel and Zinedine Zidane would be highly unhappy to be in that job at Man United because we can't give them what they need to win. So what's the point? That's the reality. So what I would want to see is a manager who is at the start of a 4 to 5 year journey to becoming a top coach. Someone that we've seen has a clear philosophy, a clear attacking style, who is not perfect, who needs to grow and evolve as a manager. So we've seen, for example, Ruben Amorim, at Sporting Lisbon, very highly regarded, very much at the start of a journey. He's achieved some things, he wants to move to the next level.
So who'd you give to?
Roberto De Zerbi, the same. Xabi Alonso, I know he's not going to come to Manchester United, but he fits into that category of manager that I'm talking about. Just so you understand that I'm looking for a profile. Even Graham Potter, I would not be unhappy going to Manchester United, even though he had a tough time at Chelsea. It was clear before that point that he would have fit, if we were talking before he went to Chelsea, into that profile of manager. And I don't think one bad job makes you a bad coach, particularly as it was craziness happening at Chelsea while he was there. So it's more about giving the club stability, and the major thing for me is getting players out and players in. That has to be the key, regardless of manager. And the profile of player is key. Sorry, just to finish off, the profile of player is also key. So we're talking 25 to 40 million pounds max, and we're talking younger, 21, 22, 23.
I said on the pod last week, and I kind of asked you, even though you weren't here, that whether you as a United fan would be prepared for the next 18 months, 2 years, even 2 seasons, to finish 5th and 6th, but the playing squad was better, the playing style was better, and you were seeing shoots of improvement. Is it acceptable to, whilst that process is going on, you may not be competitive, but the football to watch is better and the calibre of player is better?
I actually watched the game against Crystal Palace last night and thought, this will get worse before it gets better. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with going 3 or 4 steps back to go 3 or 4 steps forward, to be perfectly honest. So if Man United are 10th, 12th in years to come, that's okay. As long as they go, look, we've got young players who are learning. One, they will get better. We have a complicated philosophy of football that we think can take us to the really high level, but these players are still learning it. I interviewed Roberto De Zerbi after the Man City game and he said, it was a chastening defeat, obviously, but he said, what I'm doing there is building for the future of this football club. We've got players who are 18, 19, 20, 21, taking on the best team or one of the best teams in Europe. And they will learn a lot from that, as painful as it is for us as coaches and for the fans to take. If we have many more nights like that, I'm okay, as long as we are building towards something. So yeah, we can get worse. That's okay. But I think it has to be a holistic plan and it has to be a long-term plan. Darren, what would you do?
I would bring in Thomas Tuchel and I would create a culture of winning again, which is what Manchester United need. If he comes in, he attracts good players. He's got a terrific record. He hasn't done well with Bayern, but I say he hasn't done well. They're in the last 4 of the Champions League with every chance of getting to the final. He last won it 3 years ago, so it's not as if you're looking at someone who's a busted flush, but I think that the authority in the managerial position has gone from Manchester United.
But other managers can create that authority in their position. It's not that Thomas Tuchel's the only one, but I think the issue with what you said was almost like you bring in Thomas Tuchel and you'll definitely have a culture of winning again.
We'll get it back, absolutely.
But if he finishes 5th and 6th every year, what's the reaction? And that's why I don't want a manager of that profile.
I think the manager has to have authority, and at the moment I think all of the other managers that you mentioned, they're all unproven. Whereas if you look at Tuchel. He has been in charge of Chelsea. He's won with Chelsea. He's dealt with stuff off the field in the last days of Abramovich at Chelsea, where he was dealing with everything but football, but he represented himself superbly well. And I think that's what somebody who takes over a club the size of Man United needs.
Where does the winning culture come from?
He's a winner.
Yeah, but what do you have to do to have a winning culture?
Well, you have to bring in players.
It's a one-word answer I'm looking for.
There isn't a one-word
There
answer
is.
to that.
It's win.
That's what he's done, I just said.
No. But if he comes and Manchester United don't win, which they likely won't, there won't be a winning culture. It's not just that Thomas Tuchel's there, we have a winning culture. We lose every other week because we haven't got the squad, we haven't got the players.
But you do have the squad. You do have good players still at Manchester United. You do still have. There are underachieving players. There are players who are past it, and those players will have to be replaced. But I don't go along with the idea that you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are still a lot of good players at Manchester United.
I don't think there are, but just I want to talk about Arsenal this weekend and get the big
quickly.
Just a quick one.
Light work.
Well,
see how the Arsenal fans are. They're so shook of coming to Old Trafford.
I'm looking. No, we're going to win. I'm looking forward to it. But what I think from a United perspective is, how much do they want to spoil a possible party? Do they care about ending Arsenal's title ambitions? Is that a driving force of winning? Is it now about just limping to the end of the season? Is this your final home game of the season?
No.
What do you think?
I don't think it matters, because I think they're that bad. The confidence is that low. Arsenal are that good. The confidence is that high. Even if they do raise their game, as you inferred earlier on, I don't think it matters. I just think we have better players, a better system. We're on form. If Arsenal don't win that game and win it comfortably, something's wrong. And I'm not taking shots here at United. I'm looking at the two teams and thinking, even at Old Trafford, that should be light work for Arsenal.
You've won me around, because I think you're right.
If it's a draw, United, Arsenal would have to have played so poorly to have drawn or even lost that game, and United would have to perform to a level that we've not seen all season. We've said a few weeks ago, I can't think of a game this season for Man United where they've played well and won. I can't think of one fixture they've played. So for them to beat Arsenal or even get a draw, it would have to be the first game this season where they played well today, or Arsenal just super wasteful. I'm looking forward to it because, the 8-2 still lives long in my memory, and I'm looking to, to get some kind of revenge. But the focus, just briefly on Arsenal, is they've got to be cold, get into Old Trafford, get the 3 points, get out, take it to the last game of the season.
Would you sack Ten Hag before the end of the season?
I think I would, actually. I didn't think I would at first, but I think the lack of authority there now. And
before the end of the season, you would say.
Yeah, I think there's a precedent for it. Spurs did it with Jose Mourinho, of course, when he got to a cup final.
Listen, Barnsley sat their manager with one game left.
Yeah.
So before the playoffs. So if we want to win that FA Cup, in the words of the legend Claude, rest in peace, it's time to go. Right, gentlemen, much more still to come. Straight after this, we'll be speaking to Nels Abbey. Stay with us.